Okay, think about this. You're trying to concentrate maybe on a really dense report for work or cracking open a textbook, maybe even doing your second language homework, right?
Yeah.
And chances are you probably have music playing in the background.
Oh, absolutely. It's like standard practice for so many people.
It really is. And, research actually backs this up. Studying with music, especially music with lyrics, it's incredibly common.
But there's the catch, isn't there? Study after study confirms that, well, auditory distractions, and especially speech or lyrics, are kind of notorious for just tanking your focus.
Exactly. Totally derailing you.
And for a long time, the research kind of settled into this binary view. Instrumental music. Okay, maybe fine. Music with lyrics. Bad. Full stop.
Right. Simple on-off switch.
But that view completely misses the whole picture of multilingualism, doesn't it? I mean, what happens when the language in your headphones is different from the language on the page?
That's the core question for our deep dive today. It's based on some fascinating research, Ding and Choi from 2025, that asks exactly that.
Yeah, they tackled us head on.
So our mission today, for you listening, is to figure out if this distraction from lyrics is really just on or off, or if it's maybe more nuanced. Like, does it exist on a graded continuum, depending on how familiar you actually are with the language of the music?
Which, if you're learning a language or even just work in multiple languages, this is like super practical information. It could genuinely help you set up a better study environment.
Definitely. Okay, let's unpack this. Maybe you should start with the basics. Like, why are lyrics so disruptive to begin with?
Good place to start. So we need to look at the mechanisms of auditory distraction. The best model we have for this is probably the duplex mechanism account.
Duplex.
Yeah, it basically says sounds mess with your thinking tasks in two main ways, two different pathways.
Okay, what's the first one?
The first one is pretty straightforward, attentional capture. Think of like hearing your name called out across a room or maybe a sudden car horn.
Right, something grabs your attention completely.
Exactly. It just pulls your focus away from what you were doing, like reading. It's usually sharp, noticeable, and temporary.
Okay, that makes sense. What's the second mechanism?
The second one is maybe more subtle, but really key for background music. Interference by process.
Interference by process.
Yeah. This happens when the background sound actively disrupts the specific kind of thinking, the cognitive process you need for your main task. Why? Because they're competing for the very same brain resources.
Ah, okay, so it's like they're trying to use the same mental machinery at the same time.
Precisely. And for reading comprehension, the crucial resource is semantic processing, understanding meaning.
Right. When you read, your brain's working hard to pull the meaning out of the words, the sentences.
And if there are lyrics playing in the background, doesn't matter if you're consciously listening or trying to sing along, your brain also tries to process the meaning of those lyrics, semantically.
So the song's meaning is fighting the text's meaning.
Exactly. It's direct competition. And researchers figured this out quite a while back, actually. They found that intelligible speech, words you can actually understand, was way more disruptive for concentration tasks than just noise or even unintelligible speech.
Okay, so it's not just sound, it's the understandable words.
Yes.
No.
That converts to the semantic properties, the meaning itself. That's the real troublemaker here.
That clicks perfectly if you only speak one language. But like you said, what about bilinguals? What if I'm reading, say, Chinese, but the lyrics are in Spanish, a language I barely know? Is the interference the same as if the lyrics were in Cantonese, my native language?
That's precisely the gap this new research, Ding and Choi's work, aimed to fill. Most older studies just compared silence to maybe one language of music.
Right, like English lyrics versus silence.
Yeah, or maybe two languages at most. But they missed the chance to really test this idea of a continuum of interference, where the disruption level could actually change depending on how well you know the language.
So the core idea they put forward was this language familiarity hypothesis. Basically, if interference depends on activating meaning, and your grasp of a language varies,
then the amount of interference should vary too. It should be graded, like a sliding scale, not a switch.
okay, that makes intuitive sense. How does this connect to how bilingual brains work?
Well, what's fascinating here is how it links up with something called the multi-link model of bilingual lexical access.
Multi-link model.
Okay, it suggests that when bilinguals access language, it's non-selective, meaning even if you're trying to focus entirely on, say, English, your L2, Words from your native language, L1, are still getting partially activated in the background.
Whoa, really? So both languages are kind of on all the time.
In a way, yes, they're both sort of knocking on the door of your lexical system simultaneously, even when you're only trying to use one.
So even if I'm reading in my native Cantonese, my English is still buzzing around in the background, potentially causing interference.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But here's the crucial insight for this study. The semantic activation, the meaning boost you get from your second language, L2, is generally thought to be less robust, maybe a bit weaker, than the activation in your native L1,
Okay, weaker activation for L2.
which leads to the prediction. L2 background lyrics should be less disruptive overall than L1 lyrics. And lyrics in a language you don't know at all, a completely unfamiliar foreign language, they should trigger almost no semantic activation.
Meaning the least interference.
Exactly. Minimal interference, almost like silence.
Okay, wait, let me push back on that a bit. If L2 activation is weaker, wouldn't it always be the least distracting, regardless of what language I'm reading in? Shouldn't powerful L1 lyrics always cause the most trouble?
That's the really neat part the study wanted to clarify. It's a great question. While L1 might have a stronger signal generally, this interference by process idea suggests that disruption is greatest when there's an overlap with the task itself.
So the conflict is highest when the lyrics are in the same language as the text I'm trying to read.
That's the hypothesis. The prediction is that the maximum disruption happens when the background language directly matches the task language. The semantic fight becomes really specific and intense then.
Okay, I think I get it. It's about the direct competition.
Hmm.
So how did they actually set up the experiment to test this? Let's get into the study design.
Right, so they recruited 95 participants. These were all native Cantonese speakers who were learning English as a second language.
So L1 Cantonese, L2 English.
Correct. And crucially, none of them had any previous experience learning Spanish. Spanish served as the foreign language condition, something completely unfamiliar.
Got it. And what did these participants have to do?
They completed reading comprehension tasks. Importantly, they did tasks in both their native Cantonese, L1, and their second language, English, L2.
Okay, reading in both languages, under different sound conditions.
Exactly. 4 different conditions. 1, total silence, that's the baseline. 2, music with L1 lyrics, so Cantonese songs. 3, music with L2 lyrics, English songs. And 4, music with foreign lyrics, the Spanish songs.
Wow, okay. Did they control for the music itself? Like, was the Spanish music very different from the Cantonese music?
That's where the design gets really clever and rigorous. They went to great lengths to control for that. To isolate only the language of the lyrics, they used Disney songs.
Disney songs? Seriously?
Yeah, because they could find versions of the exact same songs, identical melodies, identical musical arrangements, tempo, complexity, everything, just with lyrics translated into Cantonese, English, and Spanish.
Oh, that's smart. So the music itself was held constant, only the words changed, like Reflection from Mulan in 3 languages.
Precisely that kind of thing. So any difference in performance couldn't be blamed on one set of songs being faster or louder or just, different music.
Okay, that's a really tight control. What about the reading tasks? Were they equally difficult?
Yes, they used passages taken from standardized tests, the Hong Kong Advanced Level Examination papers, to ensure they were realistic, challenging, and comparable in difficulty, and even things like sentence length between the Chinese and English texts.
Good. So standardized task materials too. And what were they measuring? How well people understood or how fast they read?
Both. They looked at reading comprehension accuracy, did they get the answers right? And reading comprehension time, how long did it take them to complete the task? Because distraction can mess with both your speed and your understanding.
Makes sense. Okay, so they have the setup, the controls. Now here's where it gets really interesting, as you said. What were the specific predicted patterns, these graded effects?
Right. They had 2 distinct predictions, depending on whether the participants were reading in L1 or L2.
Let's take pattern 1 first. When they were reading the L1 text, the Chinese passages, what was the predicted order of disruption?
The prediction was that disruption would climb based on language familiarity, hitting its peak when the language matched the task. So, best performance, highest accuracy, shortest time should be in the silence condition.
Okay, silence is best. Then what?
Followed very closely by the foreign lyrics condition, the Spanish music. Because it has minimal semantic meaning for them, it shouldn't interfere much.
Right, almost like silence.
Then, they predicted a noticeable drop in performance with the L2 English lyrics, some interference, because English is familiar, even if it's not the task language.
Oh, okay, moderate disruption from L2.
And finally, The biggest hit to both accuracy and speed was predicted to come from the L1 Cantonese lyrics, because that's the strongest language, and it directly competes semantically with the L1 reading task.
So, silence in foreign best, L2 moderate disruption, L1 worst disruption when reading L1 text.
Exactly. That was the hypothesized gradient for L1 reading.
Okay, now flip it. Pattern 2. What about when they were reading the L2 text, the English passages?
Okay, now the task language is L2 English. The prediction starts the same at the bottom. Silence should still be the best condition for performance.
Right. And foreign lyrics next best.
Yes, Spanish lyrics, again, predicted to cause very little disruption, minimal semantic conflict.
But here's the twist, right? What about L1 and L2 lyrics now?
This is the crucial difference. The hypothesis predicted that the L1 Cantonese lyrics would now only cause moderate disruption. It's familiar, sure, but it doesn't directly match the English reading task.
Okay.
But the most significant drop in performance, lowest accuracy, longest reading time, was predicted for the L2 English lyrics condition.
Ah, because now the L2 lyrics directly match the L2 reading task.
Precisely. That direct, task-specific semantic competition was expected to be the most damaging condition when reading in their second language.
So for the L2 reading task, the prediction was silence in foreign best, L1 moderate disruption, and L2 worst disruption.
You got it. The core idea is task-specific interference. L1 music hurts L1 reading most. L2 music hurts L2 reading most. It's not just about which language is globally stronger.
That is such a cool, nuanced prediction. Okay, the big question then. Did the results actually back this up? Did they find this delicate graded continuum?
They absolutely did. The findings were remarkably clear and supported the hypotheses almost perfectly.
Really? Both patterns held up?
Yes. The data clearly showed this graded effect. For both the L1 Cantonese reading and the L2 English reading tasks, performance, both accuracy and time, was significantly most impaired when the language of the background lyrics matched the language of the reading task.
Wow. So it wasn't just that L1 lyrics were always the absolute worst for everything.
No, exactly.
Right.
When reading English, L2, it was the English L2 lyrics that caused the biggest problem, more so than the native Cantonese L1 lyrics.
Oh, that is genuinely a phenomenal finding. It completely reframes how we should think about background music for bilinguals or language learners.
It really does.
It means, practically speaking, if you're trying to read something important in English, listening to Cantonese music might actually be less disruptive for you than listening to English music.
Correct. And conversely, if you're reading in Chinese, English music would be less disruptive than Cantonese music.
And the foreign language, the Spanish.
Yes. Crucially, the foreign language lyrics, the Spanish consistently produced a level of disruption that was statistically tiny. It was almost identical to the silent condition in terms of performance impact.
So basically no semantic interference. No problem.
Pretty much. If you don't understand the words, they don't compete for those meaning-making resources in your brain in the same way.
Okay, so connecting this back to the bigger picture. This really validates that interference by process idea, specifically for bilinguals, right?
Absolutely. It shows how sophisticated bilingual processing is. L1 task suffers most from L1 noise. L2 task suffers most from L2 noise. It perfectly illustrates that task-specific semantic competition.
And it also supports that multi-link model idea you mentioned earlier, that L2 is kind of always active.
It does, indirectly. Because even when reading in L1, the L2 lyrics still cause some disruption, more than the foreign lyrics did. It wasn't as bad as L1 lyrics, but it shows that L2 is present and can interfere.
But the biggest interference happens when the background matches the task.
Exactly. That's the main takeaway.
So this really moves us beyond that simplistic old idea of just lyrics are bad for studying.
Right. It's much more nuanced.
This research gives you, the listener, actual actionable knowledge. If you need deep focus on a document in your second language, maybe put on music in your first language, or even better, find some cool music in a language you don't understand at all.
Yeah, choose your background noise strategically based on the task. Match the complexity, or rather, mismatch the language if you want less interference.
It's a powerful confirmation that the battle for focus, especially when language is involved, happens at that deep semantic level.
Definitely. The study set out to show this graded continuum of distraction wasn't just theoretical, but a real, measurable effect. And they succeeded. Now you know which lyrics are, let's say, least bad for you depending on what you're trying to read.
Which brings us to maybe a final provocative thought to leave people with. We talked about how the multi-link model suggests your non-dominant language, L2, is always active and can interfere even with L1 tasks. And this study showed L2 lyrics can indeed cause moderate disruption when you're reading in L1.
Right, even though L2 processing is considered weaker.
So, if processing the meaning of an L2 song can measurably interfere with your native language reading, what about other types of background sound? What might the low-level cognitive demands of maybe complex but familiar foreign instrumental music do, even when you remove the lyrics entirely?
That's interesting. Are there other subtle competitions for processing resources even without semantic conflict?
Exactly. It makes you wonder just how subtle that battle for cognitive resources really is, doesn't it? Even sounds we think are just background might be having effects we don't fully appreciate.